no borders in my leftist wonderland. Get out of here, bigots. I don't wanna know ya. I feel your fear of FGM is nothing but Islamophobia. I wanna see labels on those evil GMOs. I think you'll find a real terrorist of them guys at Monsanto. Go, 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 go. I'm so liberal.
That's true. Social media is hard. I think we don't take it as seriously as we should.
I don't know if it's about taking it seriously. I don't know if we have figured out how to use it.
Or what it's going to do to us long term.
I think it's this crazy new thing that is altering how people interact and making information public and new ways of interacting with one another. And there's no rules about it. There's no teaching children how to use it because the parents have no idea how to use it. Parents can't teach their kids how to use social media correctly because they don't even know how to install an app.
No, it's bad. It's usually the other way around.
Same thing. I mean, even my parents sometimes getting into social media, they're like, well, how I have to help them log into their emails. So they can't figure anything out. So I don't think all the younger people, millennials, they call them, who are using social media, no one taught them how to use this. They're teaching themselves. So there's no scrutiny. There's no training.
Wild West.
Yeah. I really think there should be social media classes in schools.
That's actually a really smart idea. And I really wish they probably will eventually, but I wish that they incorporated something like that into schooling now. At least ways to protect yourself online,
yes.
Behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It's serious. It can damage your reputation for life.
There's so many things they could go over, Jen. They could talk about the dangers of sexting, the dangers of bullying other people. You know, don't bully other kids. They show them examples of kids who have committed suicide after being bullied. They could talk about how, you know, people have had their lives ruined because they shared a nude picture to their boyfriend and then it got spread everywhere online. You can never get it off online. Share those stories and talk about how to protect yourself, how to, securely use your phone and all that. Like young kids, their first reaction is to go on Instagram and just use it. And they had never thought about all these other consequences to social media. Don't DM with just any person online. If you're a 14-year-old girl, don't say you're going to meet them in person. You don't know who that person is. This should be taught to very young kids, 12, maybe younger. I don't know, but there should be some kind of classes about this for young kids. But the problem is the adults can't freaking figure this out. So what are they going to teach?
I don't know. It's that newfangled thing where all the kids are going and doing kid stuff.
I think.
The Facebook. When I was talking to you over Easter, and the people that I know that kid, David Hogg, his family, the sister and stuff.
And David Hogg is one of the high school protesters against guns, basically, in the United States.
What was the name of the school that the shooting was at?
Oh, I don't know, Jen.
Parkland.
He's
one of the
Florida?
Yes, in Florida.
He's
one of the survivors.
Was he in Parkland? I think, wasn't he from a different shooting?
No, he
was? Okay. I really don't know.
The one in Florida.
Okay.
So he's the one that he's very left leaning. He's against the guns, and he was the main. Him and Emma Gonzalez were the two that have been attacked the most in the most public. Well, I have family members that are best friends with his parents, so we were having conversations over Easter about social media, and they're 50. These people that know them, they're teachers. They have known this family the whole life of these kids, David and his sister and all, and the parents. So they decided that they were going to stand up for him on Facebook. And they both told me the story that the wife started arguing with people on Facebook when they were accusing him of being a crisis actor and having gone to a different school. So because she knows him personally and was neighbors and all the other things, she decides she's going to step in and argue. And she said within minutes, she was a Russian troll. She was paid by Mossad. She was anti-American. She hated freedom. She hated Trump. Just it was. She said it was the most disgusting. People were wishing for her death, calling her a Nazi. Just it was to listen to her try to describe what she went through in just a very short amount of time. And then her husband talk about how he jumped in to kind of defend her and also defend that family. And then the attacks on him got even worse. And they're like, what happened to people? It's bizarre. Like people are crazy. And so hearing this story, the stories, and hearing them regale their tales of social media, they both have decided after this incident to get off social media, to not use it, to only use it to communicate with family and very, very close friends, and to stay out of public domain, public arguments, not make any comments, because the attacks were so vicious. And I felt bad because they were getting emotionally invested very quickly in strangers, and the strangers were convinced that they were also actors and have an agenda and were lying. And so everyone is assuming everyone's coming from a bad place. And they didn't understand, like I was trying to explain, that it's hard to remember the person on the other end is also a human being. It's a weird disconnect that happens with social media and the internet in general. But I'd never heard anyone, because I'm so used to being online all the time, and I'm so used to social media, and I'm used to that kind of environment. It was really strange to hear them and how badly it affected them. One tiny incident changed everything. And how sad I felt and how bad, because it's something that should be really positive. They're teachers. They have a really active social life, really great kids. And it's turned into something ugly for them because they decided that they were going to speak publicly about something. I felt it was such a weird moment in time just to kind of sit back and look at them. And they need classes. They don't understand what they're doing. They don't understand how to use it.
How old are these people, Jen?
50.
Okay.
And they're 25. They've been teachers for 25 years or 30 years, or since they graduated, and they live a really idyllic life, and it very fulfilled, on sports teams, and the kids are great in great schools. They teach at great schools. They own a beautiful house, and that social media aspect, they cannot figure out how to navigate those waters in a successful way. So how are they supposed to teach their children? Because their son was also saying he's friends with the younger sister, David Hogg's younger sister. And so he's friends with her on Instagram, and he's been attacked simply by being her friend on Instagram, not coming out and publicly saying anything, because the media and people have hunted these people down, and he was getting attacked by media people as well, just for being her friend. So how are the parents supposed to teach their son how to navigate social media? Do you see?
I see. I understand what happened to them, but I'm sorry to say it, but the mistake was theirs.
Right, because they had no idea what they were doing or what was going to come of it.
Well, not just that, but to decide, like, I'm going to speak up about this. It's a very weird decision to decide to do that. Like, I'm just going to start posting things on Facebook. That's a misconception. They had a misconception about what the internet is, right? Or what Facebook is. Like,
right.
They think I'm going to speak up for David Hogg. To who? To some people on Facebook? Yeah, and
people were just going to accept it and say, okay, we believe you because you say you know him.
So like, let's break down what they're doing. They say, I'm going to speak up for David Hogg. Okay. How are you going to do that? On social media, Facebook. Okay. Where are they doing that? Where did they go? On their own Facebook page? On a forum? Like,
no, it was a public. So it was a public forum.
Right. So,
they were telling me.
So it's a public forum. I assume they're not going to Star Wars fan page, right? to talk about that subject, they have to go to a place where people are talking about guns.
I believe it was
right?
the high school page.
Well, I'm sure that high school page after the shooting was just bombarded by NRA and either pro or anti-gun people. So it's essentially that page became a page for guns, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they think what? They're going to have this little reply, because I assume they can't post on there as on Facebook. You can't have a post. You reply to posts, correct? If it's not your page.
So it was underneath a picture. They were responding
under
to
a picture. For example, I have my own Facebook page. I can only post there. People can reply, but I'm only posting.
Right.
So I assume they're only replying. So there's this little bubble below that. And on top of that, they know they're a real person and that they know David Hogg. But how do they prove that? How do the people on that forum know that they're looking at Joe Schmo on replying on a Facebook page and they're a real person? So when they're saying, hey, you're an actor, she felt bad. But at the same time, why would she be believed? And also, even if you were speaking up in favor of David Hogg, to how many people is this are going to look at this? A few dozen people on some social media page? That's not the way to go. And
that's why she was so shocked when she was attacked so bad.
Well, she's being attacked so bad because only like we were saying, who spends all their time in a public forum on social media arguing all day about some political issue? People with no social life who are antisocial, who don't know how to talk to people, and are very vicious and very extreme about their positions on whatever political issue it is. She's not engaging with normal people and in a normal way.
But you can't explain that to them. They do not understand that they are not dealing with normal people. It's Facebook. Everyone's on Facebook just like me, right? So why am I being attacked so bad?
And another thing, Jen, is that you say like social media dehumanizes people. People forget there's a human at the end of it. I don't even know if that's the right way to describe it. A Facebook page is not a human. You are not your social media page. You're actually not engaging with a human being. You're engaging with an electronic forum page. It's a bubble. There's somebody actively typing on there, right? But you're not engaging with a human being. To engage with a human being, you actually have to be in front of that human being. So, and another thing is, she doesn't know who she's interacting with. She could be arguing with a 14-year-old.
That's what I told her too. I'm like, those people that called you a troll were probably teenagers.
See, that's another problem. People assume for some reason, and I did this too. I don't know why I did this, but I did do it.
We've talked about this a lot. Yeah,
this is crazy. I don't know why I assume this, but if I see, let's say, an anonymous Twitter account where I don't know that there's no picture to identify that person, there's no indication of their age, your reaction to an anonymous account is to think, one, they are male. Two, they're of average age, something like 20 to 45 or something like that. And that they live in your country, if there's no indication of which country they're in. Your assumption, everyone's assumption is to do that. Yes. Unless you live in some really small, obscure country and you know you're engaging with people outside that country. But if you're in the United States, you assume everyone you're talking with is in the U.S. You assume if it's an anonymous account that they're male and they're just of average age. And I was very shocked one time, this happened between you and me, where I was arguing with somebody about, I think it was the oppression of Muslim women in the Middle East. And then you told me that person was 14, I think.
Yeah.
Why am I arguing about women with a 14-year-old boy? He's probably never seen a naked woman. He probably doesn't even know what a vagina looks like. What? And you think about it. Okay, imagine you actually had a 14-year-old in front of you. I mean, if you're a feminist and you're 25, 35, whatever, and you're arguing with somebody online and they're anonymous, think about if that person, and they could be 15 or 14 years old. Now, if you're a 35-year-old woman and you had a 14-year-old boy in front of you and he started talking about women, women and feminists, blah, 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 would you get mad? Would you start debating them in a very emotional way? No. Let me tell you about women. Would you do that? No, you'd probably be like, "Aw," and pat them in the head and send them on their way. They're 14.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't engage in a very political debate about the oppression of women with a 14-year-old boy. But that's clear when you see them. On social media, you don't see them. So, for example, this woman, I'm sure in her head, she's imagining all these people of being of average age. And
they're all the same as her.
They're all the same as her.
They're rational, and they have jobs.
Yeah, this is the danger of social media. You think they have jobs or normal people like her. Unlike, no, they could be very young people. They could be very strange people who spend all day online and never go outside. And this is not a person you would really interact with in any given day, except for through social media. It's not the average person that if she went to, let's say, a meeting at her school. She's a teacher, right?
Yeah.
Let's say they're having a school meeting with administration, teachers, maybe students, parents, all those people. Let's say maybe they invite the school mayor and things like that. The school mayor, the city's mayor, some their representative, something like that. We're talking about normal people who have jobs and you interact with them face to face. This is not the same thing as talking with some random dude who could be a little kid or some really bored guy who spends all day arguing online.
Plus it brought out the crazies. That subject brought out the
and
crazies.
She's going for if not one of the most craziest, if not the craziest subjects to talk about in the United States.
Right. And she was going to change minds because she just thought, I'm going to defend this kid because I know him and these people are wrong. So she's telling me this story and just in shock the way people reacted.
There are like three
welcome
subjects.
To social media.
There are like 3 subjects I stay away from on social media. One of them is guns, because you can't. There's no way to talk about that subject,
abortion, guns,
with anyone in a rational way where you're going to have a polite conversation in an objective, rational way. It's just not going to happen. One of those subjects is guns. And she having no experience about this, no experience with social media, not understanding what social media is pretty much, and going into the most extreme, controversial, vicious topics on some forum and just like, I'm going to speak to people. And then what did she expect was going to happen?
And then her husband white knighted her.
Like, and he goes in white knighted and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And they're like, oh, people are so awful. Yeah. And I have to say, not really, actually. I have to disagree with them. People are not that awful. You just picked the worst way to do it.
Yeah,
what she should have done, if she actually wants to speak up about David Hogg, who is very famous in the United States right now and has a lot of attention, what she should have done is gone to some news agency. That's what she should have done. She shouldn't be talking to random people on some forum on a Facebook page. She should contact CNN or ABC or NBC and say, hey, I know David Hogg. They're saying a lot of things that he's not of high school age. He's older, right? That was the accusation. Mm-hmm. And say, no, I'm his teacher. I know what age he is, and he's this kind of person. She could have done that. And she probably would have actually been interviewed. These news organizations now are hungry for any more information when it comes to popular people. That's one
I don't know
way.
if she would have done that because she's like best friends with his mom. But,
well, it's either do that or don't do anything. But
yeah, I agree.
But it's crazy to think, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to a dozen people or 24 people on a Facebook page and argue with them.
I don't know.
It's like, and I bet you, how many people really were that when you say she was viciously attacked and she's describing all the attacks, how many people could have been? It wasn't a million, because it doesn't take a lot. When people say I'm being bullied and I'm being attacked, if it's 24 people, people will always describe it as thousands of people. Some people will say millions of people. Really could have been, if you're being attacked by 100 people, that's a lot. It's usually not even that many.
But these are the people that are teaching middle schoolers and high schoolers. I mean, they're respectively, one's a middle school teacher and one's a high school teacher. So they're teaching the youth and they can't figure out social media. So how are they supposed to teach the next generation about social media if they're reacting that badly to it and making, over one incident that it's such a huge deal because they'd never experienced that before and didn't even know that existed? how are they supposed to teach kids to be careful online? That's like
They
the adults
overreact.
need,
They overreact. They'll tell their kids stay away from from social media completely because it's awful and there's just bullying and everyone's insane and the world is insane. And if you go on there and you say anything, people will bombard you with evil, vicious attacks. And because that's what their experience was for one day, trying to go on a Facebook page to talk about the most controversial subject in America with a bunch of trolls.
They need social media classes, and they still use
kids.
Facebook, but they've gone back to, I'm just using it for family and friends, and I'm never gonna comment publicly again, Yeah. But they need classes.
Yeah, I could have used classes, to be honest, when I first started using it. My reaction to social media when I started using Twitter was to reply to everybody. Getting to an argument with everyone, no matter what the account was.
Yeah.
If it had one follower and it was a Twitter egg, which no longer exists, the Twitter egg, no picture, no personal information, they had 100 tweets, I would go into debates that will last for days. What a freaking waste of time. I wish somebody had told me, don't do that. Don't do that. No one was there to teach me how to figure this all. I had to stumble through it little by little. So,
because they actually, like, all joking aside, what happened with Awful, and I just wanted to pat him on the head and be like, oh, you guys are so cute.
You met the internet.
Yeah. Oh, did you like the internet? Did you guys get along? Oh, goodness.
I mean, the internet, it really isn't that bad. If you go into it looking for a subject that is not that controversial, you kind of know how to use it. For example, the website I was talking about, Goodreads, that's about books. It's kind of like a Twitter or Facebook about books. And I
used to use that a long time ago.
And you can follow what other people are reading. I leave reviews about the books I've read. I can see what other people are reading or
book
their
recommendations.
reviews.
I would always use it for book recommendations.
It's amazing. And actually, I haven't experienced any negativity there. I don't have people yelling at me, throwing fits or anything. It's all very positive because it's around a positive issue. Like, we all love reading books. This is why I also started a book club on Facebook, but I made it private. It's not public. I add people to it, but you can't, not just random people can comment on there or post on there. It's called, just like our podcast, People of the Podcast, that one's called People of the Books.
I like that.
And it's great. That page is super positive. There's no yelling. There's no viciousness. There's no trolling. Everybody's takes a picture of the book they're reading. They talk about it, how much they love it, how much they recommend for other people to read it or don't recommend it. If you find ways to have a positive experience on social media around a positive subject, and you have to do it in a more closed way. I'm sorry, but that's the only really way to have a fully positive experience online. If you have a big following or a big interaction with people in a public forum where it's not closed off, you're gonna face attacks. Now, I'm not saying you can't do that. You just have to be ready for that. Right? Like, I'm not going to close my Twitter account to private. I know I'm going to get vicious attacks, and I still do, but I'm more ready for it. I'm like, okay, it just washes over me. I'm not going to interact with those people. I'm going to, put it away or mute the person, whatever it is. But I'm ready for it. If you're a person like you're describing now, a person who's never experienced social media, and they just dive into the gun debate, it's not going to go well. If she had gone into, like Goodreads, and she's a teacher, she might love reading, she'd have a great experience. It's just like, oh my God, social media is awful and people are awful. No, you just found the most awful people instantly when you got online.
But it's so easy to think that, like we were talking about earlier.
Think that, yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's easy to come to that conclusion having the experience she had. But it's just it's a misuse of social media, and especially like you can't go into controversial subjects on a public forum. You have that's something. If there was a course on this, that's something you would have to explain. a public forum and a closed forum is going to be very different. Interacting with people who you know in real life on your Facebook that's closed is different. A public an open forum like to everyone, but it's still not public, is going to be different. And then fully open to just everyone and everybody can comment like crazy. It's going to be chaos, and you might face some vicious attacks. These companies like Facebook and Twitter might be able to moderate these sites a little bit and have reporting and ban people. It's still not going to be perfect. You're still going to face a lot of backlash and attacks, especially if you're going into controversial subjects. It's always going to happen. They're never going to solve that completely. People people are saying like they want that solved. They want people banned. They want to experience the internet, even if they're talking about abortion or guns without any trolling, any bullying. That's a pipe dream. It's never going to happen. I don't care how much Twitter bans people or anything. It's just not going to happen.
No.
Unless
but
they
if you go into it knowing what you're going to go into, it makes it a lot easier.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You have to be prepared to some level of this. It's not normal to have a debate on abortion with the entire world. That's not a normal state of things. There was a time people couldn't do that. You can't argue with millions of people about abortion prior to the internet.
Why would you?
It would be a little bit insane. Right? Imagine
get a megaphone outside.
Imagine you're standing on a stage with a megaphone, and there's 100 million people right in front of you, like across the stage, and everybody's just yelling at you. That would be the equivalent of an open Twitter account and talking about abortion. That'd be insane to do.
That's a good analogy.
That's what people are doing. And they're shocked that it gets bad. Of course it's going to get bad. Nobody could do that before. Debates were on TV with like Donahue or Oprah, these old talk shows. People would go into these insane debates. But then it was just like 2 to 3 people on one side, 3 people on the other side. And then there's the public booing and yelling and asking questions. But even then it's just like, how many people are in the studio? 100?
Yeah.
That's it? Right?
It's not really good debate skills anymore either. It's about lowest common denominator and gotchas, and it kind of seems like it's dirty. It's not the same thing. It's not intellectual, it's not academic, it's just calling names and trying to tear the other person down. Not all, but the debates that I see online and that are supposed to be debates aren't debates. Like, I was raised with like debate club. That's something also my kids said, that they don't have anything like debate clubs or debate classes, where we had to take a class for half the year that taught us how to debate subjects, and we had to debate sides that we weren't on. Mm-hmm. And they don't encourage kids to do that anymore, and I think that's really unfortunate.
Right. I mean, also, if you add on top of all of this, Jen, the anonymity issue, where people speak about these subjects viciously, emotionally, and then there's on top of that, there's no social consequence for a person who doesn't have a picture, doesn't use their name or anything like that. What are they going to say? They're going to say anything. There's no consequence to it at all. There's no consequence online for it. There's no consequence in real life for it. They're going to say anything. I mean, did the person you're talking about now understand that a person, if they are anonymous, they're going to say crazy, vicious, nasty things to you?
No, of course. They assume that people that are using it are just like them. Right.
And that, I mean, that's another, I mean, when we're talking about these old debates, right? How people used to debate on a stage or something like that. People wouldn't go on a stage in a mask and present them as well, this is, political genie 4, 5, 6, 7, and he's wearing a mask, and he's going to debate this other person who we know their name, and they're showing their face. That's what it would be like in real life if we were doing it that way. But that's how it's being done on the internet, and this is why, to a large degree, anonymity does make interactions worse.
We've talked about this because obviously with the ex-Muslim aspect and needing anonymity, not all need it, but some do. I've been very pro anonymity, and I'm not so pro anonymity now.
I have a great argument against that whole every time you bring up anonymity and the dangers and the damages it causes online, the first go-to every time I hear about that is, what about ex-Muslims? What about ex-Muslims? What about people who are in danger in the Middle East and they can get killed from talking about Islam? What about them? So yeah, anonymity is great. Well, let me tell you something. I interact with a lot of ex-Muslims. Ex-Muslims are the most anti-anonymity people there is. Because every forum, every group of ex-Muslims, when they talk to each other, anonymous people are not allowed.
You don't know who you're talking to.
They are the most anti-anonymous people there are. And I have heard this from many people, including you, Jen. You told me about a group, a chat room, where you were scrutinized as to whether you were a real person or not, correct? And they were asking you about, like, oh, you say you claim you live in Pakistan. Do you know this actor? Do you know this movie? Can you say this and that? They were testing you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very,
right?
Very scrutinized.
So you were telling me about that. And there's a lot of ex-Muslim groups that to get into that group, and these are social media groups, to get into that group, you have to go through rigorous verification as to who you are, if you're a real ex-Muslim, and your identity. Because if you don't show who you are, you could be a fake person who's trying to gather the names of those other people to out those people to everyone else. So so don't
common.
tell me that the excuse that what about the ex-Muslims when it comes to anonymity, ex-Muslims are the most scrupulous and anti-anonymous people there are. They don't just let every anonymous ex-Muslim account into their groups and to talk with. They don't do that.
Not a chance.
They don't do that. So don't tell me like this is like it's a haven for ex-Muslims to do that. They don't allow that. So,
but the anonymity allows other people to attack those of us that are not anonymous in very nasty ways.
So when I talk about being rigorous about who I interact with and that I don't really feel the need to interact with anonymous people, don't come to me with, well, what about the ex-Muslims? Because ex-Muslims don't interact with those people either. So it's not a valid argument. And that's the go-to argument when I talk about anonymity.
All of the anonymous accounts, the ex-Muslim accounts that I interact with, to Twitter, they're anonymous. But I know personally that they're who they are because we have to expose ourselves to each other to know that we're safe.
Mm-hmm.
So I know if it's a girl, I know if they're underage, I know if it's a boy, I know where they live, even though their story may be a little bit different for safety. But absolutely. And it hurts us more than it helps us.
Absolutely. Because the same anonymity that might protect that person online is being used by other people who want to hurt you to infiltrate and hurt you more. So the anonymity that protects you could also hurt you. So it's a double-edged sword. And even, for example, you were saying that, between each other, you have to verify who you are. That I do the same thing. The people I've had on my podcast who are anonymous, for example, I interviewed somebody from Pakistan who was anonymous, didn't show his face, didn't use his real name, but didn't do that. But when we spoke privately, I did see his face and he did show me his home, where he lived, his wife, like he was open to me.
Right.
Right. So yes, like I'm putting out a podcast with somebody that is anonymous. You can't see them, but I didn't just do that willy-nilly. Willy-nilly makes me laugh. I can't believe I just used that.
I love it. I'm so glad you did.
I'm such an antiquated. We're so old, Jen. Jesus.
I know.
Oh man. But no, I didn't do that just willy-nilly. I did have confirmation myself. There's some filtering through myself through the public to who he is. But I do think that the overwhelming majority of people who are anonymous online are not in danger of their lives. That's not the reason most people do it. Most people do it just because they don't want any social consequence to what they say. That's 99% of the people online.
Well, and the
who are
worst
anonymous.
offenders that I've come across, the anonymous people that have been the most vicious and accusatory and lie or make things whatever, just to really hurt people. Like they exist solely to hurt people and tear people down. Those people have been the biggest proponents of anonymity and use it as a weapon more than anyone else, and the ones that will fight the hardest for it because it keeps them safe.
Right.
And some of them are ex-Muslims.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. I think so. Just it could be said that it protects some people, but that's a very tiny minority of the anonymous accounts on social media. Very, very tiny portion of it. Most of it is just angry people who are looking to say vicious things with no consequence. I don't know if I fully support anonymity on major social media accounts like Twitter anymore. I think it ultimately it makes it a worse place to be.
I agree. I don't support it.
Yeah,
that's a big deal coming from me because I've been such a proponent of it.
I understand the upside to it. I understand that somebody in Saudi Arabia, for example, who can enjoy the liberty of Twitter without being outed. I understand that completely. I interact with those people every day. But I have to weigh the upside and the downside. And I think that the amount of people who are using anonymity to hurt that same person we're talking about in Saudi Arabia, using the anonymity, and on top of that, everyone else who's just being a complete dick online because they can get away with it because of anonymity, all those things put together, I have to say outweighs the pros about it. I've thought about this a lot. I understand the benefits to it very well. I don't think there's very few people online I think can say that they have interacted with as many ex-Muslims and people who are in danger in other countries like me. There's a bit, but there's not a lot. And you know that, Jen, like I talk with these people every day. I understand the benefits to it very well.
Well, you could also have a pseudonym.
You could have a pseudonym. I mean, I've seen people who are verified online who use pseudonyms. So
right. So it's not like you have to be completely 100% know everything about me. This is my first and last name, guys. Look me up. It doesn't have to be that extreme.
Yeah. I don't know if people know that, but I've seen people get verified on Twitter and their name is a pseudonym, and I know it's a pseudonym. I don't know how that happens, but it does happen.
Yep.
So it's another thing. I don't know. It's not a black and white issue. It's a complicated issue. A lot of people online are very pro anonymity, but that's usually the anonymous people, to be honest.
Yeah. I decided to not be anonymous because it gives more weight to the things that you say. You are out in the public and you're scrutinized a little bit more and you're a little bit more at risk. But especially living in the West, where if you're not speaking at public events where there's going to be large crowds, you're pretty safe. No one's going to come to my house and say, hey, you've been talking about Islam online. I have to kill you now. It's not going to happen like that. It's people that I know more than anything else. But even after talking to you and you really pushing the fact that anonymity takes weight away from your words. And it's true.
I really believe that. I believe that saying things with your real name, with your face, and showing who you really are changes the way you speak. I think when you're anonymous, I think people are much more likely and they feel much more liberty to lie, to smear, to be more nasty, to bully. I think that anonymity causes people to be worse. And even if that wasn't their intention, they tend to fall into that because there's never consequences. Consequences are important. So social consequences to holding somebody accountable for what they say, for lying, for being nasty. We do that every day with any public person who said something racist, sexist, false, blatantly lying. We hold them accountable. And that's a good thing. That's the way we get to truth and being better people, is that we hold people socially accountable. This was the original meaning of the word social justice back in the day, when there would be justice for having positive social interactions, right? If a person acted racist, you can't arrest that person, but you can have some kind of social justice for it.
Right.
Now that's way overused, and it's used to scrutinize all kind of ridiculous things. But ultimately, I do think it's a net positive in society. If a person lied in a book or they said something blatantly untrue, it's not illegal. They can't go to jail, but we should distrust them as a society. And if they're anonymous and we don't know who that person is, but they have 100,000 followers or 500,000 followers on Twitter, but you have no idea who that person is, there's no consequence to them lying. And I don't think that's a good thing. It does it's conducive to dishonesty and viciousness. That's what I think.
I agree. I did not feel that way, but after experiencing and seeing the end result of anonymity, I'm against it now.
Well, Jen, when I started online, actually, I always used my name and I always used my picture from day one, 3 years ago, when I started talking about things publicly. So I never was anonymous. You were, and then you changed it after long conversations we had. Do you felt you changed? Not people interacting with you, but do you feel you changed how you spoke when you started being a real person online?
Yeah. Yep. 100%.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I thought more about the words that I used, how I spoke to other people, even how I argued was different, less vicious. I considered each word stronger, I guess is the right way to put it, before writing them down or actually like posting it or hitting that button to make it go out. I thought twice. And I never did that when I was anonymous. It was fuck everybody. But you can't do that when you're not anonymous.
Yeah, that's absolutely what I think happens either consciously or possibly even unconsciously with people.
I think it's a lot more that it's unconscious. I think it just happens and you don't realize it. You can take a step back and say, oh, wow. But at the time, I don't think most people are aware of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was awful. You have to have seen a difference between how serious it was. To me, it was about being silly. Mm-hmm. And I still can be silly, but in a different way. And it was about just having fun. I wasn't using it for serious reasons, but the second I stopped being anonymous, I stopped using it for those reasons and I started using it for more serious reasons. More, online activism, more talking about Islam and but not just those things. It just really changed my relationship with social media.
I think that's ultimately a net positive in general. Again, like there's some people in the world that it's impossible for them to speak out the way they do in the country they live in. Again, I think that's a tiny minority compared to the amount of people who are just being vicious for vicious sake. And I think
because those people are going to drown out the people that
that's a great
are
point.
The tiny minority.
That's a great point. Yeah. The amount of just nasty people who are anonymous drown out those voices that are the exception. Mm-hmm. I totally agree. And if
we've seen it happen.
Yeah, we have seen it happen. There have been purges of just anonymous fake accounts online that they get eliminated and pushed out, especially on Twitter recently. And I got to say, the atmosphere is better. It is better. So
it's so much nicer.
Yeah. I mean, I believe in free speech, but I got to say, the speech is better when there's accountability.
And it's like, I don't have to stand on a corner and listen to someone scream obscenities, not even at me, just in general, about other races or, that they want an ethno state or whatever it is. I don't have to listen to that in my real life. And I know you can mute it and you can block it out of social media, kind of. But I still think that it wouldn't be allowed. Like, say, if I was to walk into the parking lot next door to me right now and some guy had a megaphone and he was sitting there screaming things about black people, or, he wants an ethno state, or, women are whores, or whatever it would be, he wouldn't be allowed to do that. You have freedom of speech here, but you can't do that. There's a so you shouldn't, it's kind of like online. I look at it the same way. And just because you have freedom of speech doesn't mean you have to allow someone to be an asshole. It's like Twitter is a private platform. And I believe that some people have been silenced, unfortunately, and culled because of the masses that are negative. But ultimately it's their platform, and if they want to silence, or not even silence, just tell people you can't behave this way. It's not okay. That's not taking away their freedom of speech. There's a responsibility that comes with freedom of speech.
I don't really worry anymore about telling people to behave. I think that's silly. You can't tell the world to behave. You can't.
Well, no, you just say you can't. You're not on my platform. Then bye.
No, don't even say that. Just block them. Just do that. Don't get emotionally invested with. Again, if you're outspoken on controversial issues to the entire world, you got to be careful not to get emotionally invested with every single person you encounter.
Oh,
that is draining
for sure.
That is.
But I'm talking
draining.
about Twitter as the platform. They have the right to say,
get
off my platform.
Right, as Twitter. And the libertarians should be on our side on this, that as a private company, they should have the right to say, no, we're not going to allow this kind of speech on here.
And I don't like it because I say some things that are controversial and I'm at risk, but I have to word what I say carefully. I can still convey the same message, maybe a little less nasty. And it changes the conversation. So when I say that free speech, there's a responsibility that comes with free speech. There's a responsibility that comes with free speech.
Well, not just a responsibility, but I feel there should be an even playing field of responsibility when we speak out. Because when I say something, let's say I'm debating with somebody on Twitter or Facebook and they're anonymous, everything I say is being scrutinized and under my name for all of time. If I say something, for the rest of my life, people can hold me accountable for saying that. And I'm speaking with somebody who is not under the same scrutiny and doesn't face the same consequences. Why should I engage in that conversation? There's no reason that I should engage in a conversation where the rules are different.
Or give weight to those words.
Or give weight to those words. But if there's not the same accountability and responsibility of what's being said, if they can't be held accountable for what they're saying, they can say anything to me. They could be as nasty as they want, as dishonest as they want, and they'll never feel the consequences of it, but I will. And this is fair. This is not fair. I'm not going to engage with that person. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to engage with anonymous people online who are acting that way towards me. You know, I've heard people complain about this. Tough. If you get too nasty, just block. And people will say, well, I've heard people be so pompous and arrogant about the fact they don't block anyone. Oh my God. Anyone who does that is either so famous that they have somebody else managing their Twitter account, or they have just so many followers that it just gets all drowned out, or they have too few followers and they never get like too many bad interactions. But I'm not going to invest my time even into looking in my notifications of those people. I just don't want to engage with them. It's a normal thing to block people out of your life.
Yes.
I block people out of my life every day. This person was a dick, a friend of a friend, was a total asshole and dishonest and everything else. I don't want to interact with that person ever again. I don't want to see them. I don't want to be friends with them. I don't want them in my life. That's normal. That's a good thing. Why should I not act that way online?
Exactly.
Like
I love Block. Block is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't use it that typically, but if a person is being really nasty to me, I why not? Why do I have to let this person into my life? Life is too short. I don't get paid for doing this. I do this on my off hours. I go to sleep at really late hours of the night, as you know, Jen. I hardly sleep. No, this is not my profession. And
yeah, so why would you have to put up with that?
Even this is a very stressful thing for me to do, even aside from social media, because just the time I take to do this causes me stress. If you add on top of that social media, it's absurd and it's not fair to me. Again, this is not my profession. If I was a news journalist on CNN, yeah, maybe you shouldn't block people and you're just reporting to everyone. I get that. I'm not that. I'm a normal person just who uses social media with some following. That's it. I don't even get paid for this. So I need to maximize the amount of time I can spend on social media, doing my podcast, interviewing, editing, everything I do on Twitter and Facebook. That's all extra time for me. So as a person who's in that situation, I need to count the minutes in the day, and those minutes that I could spend being trolled by somebody, I can't do it. I'm sorry. I'm not that person. There's other people who make a lot of money from this. And it's their job. They can deal with it. They can deal with it, but I'm not. Right. People get confused. I'm not that person. I'm not that
if person. I'm not benefiting personally, like if I don't feel like the conversation or the person in my life, I'm benefiting from them and I'm not related to them, because kind of with some of those, you don't have a choice. I don't want them in my life. I'm not going to waste any time on them. If I have to block people out of my life, including blocking them on social media, blocking somebody that I just don't want to talk to, I don't have to explain my reasons, nor do I have to flaunt the fact that I am blocking or not blocking people. It's not a, I was looking for a term. It's not a, when you are showing something off to a lot of people, there's a certain term for it. I can't think right now.
And it's not something. Yeah, go ahead.
It's just not something I have to show off. That's cool.
Right. But and also, it's not about the fact that somebody disagrees with me, because I mean, whether you agree with me or not, I'm not going to engage with you. And I don't block the person. I just leave it there, because that's another thing that takes up way too much time. People disagreeing with me on opinions I have online. I mean, for one, it's always going to happen. I'm talking about.
If you say I like blue, you will get.
Hello, Jen?
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. If you said if you say I like blue,
there's going to be 20 responses of people saying "fuck you." Red's the best color.
Exactly. I would have to block everybody who if somebody disagreed with me on Twitter. It's not the reason I block people, because I won't. It's not to avoid controversy or disagreement. I won't argue with you no matter what it is anymore, because that is way too much time to spend to get into an argument with every single person on social media who disagrees with you. That's too much time.
Yeah,
already writing one tweet about my own opinion takes enough time. Debating somebody and every single person, I'm sorry, like, people might notice like I'm not engaging with people. It's a time issue. It's too much. I might do it occasionally, but I have to really think about it. Do I have time to do this? Am I interested in doing this? Do I think the person is worth talking to? It takes a lot.
Are they going to get something out of it?
Am they going to get something out of it? Am I going to get something out of it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things to think about, but in general, I'm not really interested anymore in engaging through social media. If I am going to do that, I'll choose somebody who I think I can talk to, maybe on a podcast or something like that. That I'd rather do that, because it's not Twitter and Facebook are not good debate forums.
Do you think we're just old and crotchety now, and just don't want to put up with crap? The youngins can put up with crap we can't put up with. I don't know.
I think it's a time issue, though, Jen. I think they have a lot more time on their hands because they're not adults.
Well, you're also producing things like podcasts. And
that's another thing. I produce a lot more than most people online. The regular user, I mean, people who say who complain about blocking, if the only thing you're doing is Twitter, you have a lot more time than me. I'm running 2 podcasts that I record, I prepare, I edit, I put up, I promote, all by myself, 100% on my own. Like, Jen is helping me now with this new podcast, and some things I'm still doing.
Yeah, but you editing. Still do most of the work. I just show up. I got it easy.
That's another thing. So, if you're not doing as much as me online, again, you can't complain. So, and I'm putting this stuff out there for free. So.
Right? So how dare you not engage with every single person and take all your time?
Yeah.
It's like, come on, no. And
I'm also more interested in this, to be honest. I'm more interested in doing the podcast than I am to spend that much time on Twitter and Facebook.
Well, plus if I'm going to debate something with somebody or have a discussion, I want it to be with somebody that is at the same level as me if I'm going to get something out of it. So if I'm arguing now, a couple people I will argue about Islam with and to teach them or to put them in their place once in a while. I get on my high horse. But I want to learn something from that person too. I would like to maybe, if I can, teach them something, but learn from them as well. So they need to be on the same level as me as far as how much they know about the subject that we're discussing. So
that is very rare. That is really rare to encounter that, though.
Yeah, that's why you have to be super choosy. And if I'm going to take that time and invest all of that into that, I want it to be with someone like that. Not that I always get my way, but it would be nice.
Yeah, I think if I'm going to invest time to listen to somebody else's arguments, I want to know that it's worth listening to. It's the idea you're going to debate the entire world is also, again, kind of insane. If you think like you must have a lot of time in your hands if you're going to debate every single person you encounter online, especially when you have a larger following where everything you say is like you said, like if you say I love black, somebody's going to say fuck you, I love blue, and debate me about it. Yeah, you racist. Yeah, debate me on it. Right.
So. But follower count is another thing that's really important to remember because you always told me there was a moment where you hit a certain amount of followers and things change.
10,000. That's my theory. That's my theory is 10,000.
And if you don't, even at my 8,000, it's really overwhelming sometimes. And people that have lower follower counts don't really understand. I think that it kind of feels like it's the same for everybody. But if you go into 10, 20, 30 and on up from there, I can't even imagine. If I'm overwhelmed with 8,000 followers, how bad it has to be. I feel bad that I can't react and respond to the positive responses to the things that I say. And there's a lot, and I can't. So
to explain my theory is that when you hit 10,000, that's the moment where any tweet you say about any subject, somebody will come in and say they believe the opposite and want to debate or be contrary or something like that. Where it's all the praise before where you had like 5,000, everybody's just like, oh, you're so great. And I totally agree.
You so much.
I love you so much. That's like 2,000, 3,000. It gets a little bit sketchy at 8, but at 10, that's where because basically that's where the amount of followers you have where some amounts of people will always retweet you or share what you're saying. And that will lead for those tweets to reach a wider audience of people who don't know you, disagree with you, and don't know you from Adam. So they're going to come in and want to hate. And then it just gets perpetually bigger after that. When you have a lot less following, let's say 1,000, your tweets are not being spread that much. You're pretty much in a closed circle of people who you're friends with. People are not going to bother too much to debate you because you're not a big deal. You're just a small account of like 100, 500 followers.
It's not enjoyable.
They feel like it's a waste of time to attack you. But when you reach 10,000, people start to see you as like, this person is worth kind of going after. That's my theory. And I tell a lot of people that I'm friends with that I see they're getting close to 10. I'm like, be careful. Things change on Twitter at 10.
I've seen this happen. I've seen the people that it's happened to, so I can attest to that. And I haven't hit 10,000. But you're
getting close. You're getting close. I think you've come. You're about like close to 9. You've kind of been up and down.
I've been up and down about 500 actually. Like it's weird. I go up and then I'm right back down again.
I think that's
Literally
because
500.
Twitter is purging some old accounts recently. But when that stabilizes and you finally reach 10, yeah, we're going to have a new conversation. Jen's going to be complaining about Twitter a lot.
I already am like a mass blocker. It takes one comment to me I don't like, and I'm like, yeah, I won't even say anything. You're just blocked. You're done.
But like a pretty nasty comment, no?
It has to be. I'll argue as long as you're respectful, it's fine. But the second you get nasty, yeah, it's
yeah, anything threatening, violent, racially oriented, really bigoted, anything like that, like pretty over the top. That's pretty much an immediate block towards my way too.
It has to be. Why would I engage with people like that?
Yeah,
I have family I don't engage with that aren't that bad. So why would I do it with a stranger?
Exactly. Exactly.
I have dumped family for less.
And I have to say, I don't think I ever see those kind of comments from accounts that are kind of high in followers and the person has a picture and a real name, or they're verified. That's very rare. Usually these comments are from small following, like sometimes like 4 followers or something, and no picture, fake name, something like that. That's usually what it is. It's usually what it is. So,
well, that's why I like the options now that you can like mute people that don't have pictures, that haven't verified their accounts. Mm-hmm. So at least that kind of takes some of the noise away, and you can just assume that most people that are responding to you at least have real accounts, even though they might be anonymous. At least they've verified, so they don't have 25 troll accounts and they're just, being jerks. But then you have to, obviously go through those ones as well and prioritize which ones you have time to even respond to, if you're going to respond to any.
Mm-hmm.
It's time consuming just to decide who you have time to respond to. Like, you really want to get to someone that you know and they've said something that's really profound. It's like, yeah, I really want to respond to this, but that takes time too. And then there's all the other ones that you kind of feel like, well, I responded to this and this person kind of knows me, and if I don't respond or say something, are they going to take it personally? Because some people are really sensitive.
For example, if I get somebody disagreeing with me very harshly on something, like they're very serious about their disagreement, I am much more likely to respond to that person if I've seen them follow me in the past and have positive interactions with me, and they follow me. I've seen their account. Maybe we've spoken before. Then I'm very likely to respond because I know that person's not coming from just a random point of hate and out of nowhere and just a fake account. I know it's a person who in general may agree with me, but they sincerely found a point of disagreement. Then I feel like their disagreement is sincere, and they also know me, and they like me for all intents and purposes besides this, and then we can have a real conversation. But if I've never seen the account before, much more unlikely I'll respond. For
me, it's like nil. Chances are probably not at all.
But that you mean if they're nasty, or if there's just a disagreement? If they're nasty, it's like that's totally different. I'm talking about a person who's just disagreeing with me.
No, if I don't know them and they come at me to disagree with me, if I don't know them, I won't respond. I have to know them. Yeah, it's too much time. If I had more time and it was something that I was doing, if I was just doing Twitter and that was my job, or you know what I mean, I didn't have another life to live, I might respond to people I don't know, but I generally don't. I can talk.
Yeah.
I used to.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting more interested in reading books again. On Goodreads, there's a yearly challenge that I just discovered where you challenge yourself to read a certain amount of books in the year.
Isn't it like 100 books?
You can put the amount of books. I put 50, which is a lot. And I don't think I could do, because I started it kind of late in the year. But it's good for me to kind of it's like exercise. You get a better exercise in a class where you're being pushed by other people versus just going on your own and just doing whatever. Same thing with books. If you're just going kind of but here I have an objective, and you have other people to talk with on Goodreads, so you're kind of pushing yourself to do it. I feel like this is a better investment of my time than debating on every little thing with every account on social media. That's just, it's not conducive to much, really debating everything online. I feel like you keep doing this. I don't know what really you're doing with your life if you keep doing that.
It's not healthy at all.
Definitely not healthy psychologically and emotionally.
Mm-mm. It really isn't. I've only seen bad come from it.
I wonder, in some ways, social media is a cult itself. In some ways, isn't it? Huh?
Mm-hmm.
You are kind of in a bubble, and there's these groups that form and dogmas
there's
that form.
Lots of shunning if you try to leave.
Yeah, there's a lot of cultish aspects about social media.
Think of the groups that we kind of got invested in and left, and think of
speak for yourself.
How you be quiet, and how difficult it was for some people to leave those groups without a huge amount of backlash. You did it very easily, but some other people
I was never that invested
lucky.
in these groups that you're talking about. I knew some a little bit, but I never got invested in. I'm not one to really become part of the group. I might know some people from groups, but I've never been a group oriented person ever in my life. Groups around politics or ideologies or anything like that, I've never joined any group like that ever. The only kind of clubs or groups I've joined in my entire life have been sports teams and really martial arts teams of different kinds, where it's not really around an ideology, so it's really different. I've been invited in the past when I was in college to some political clubs of different orientations. First 15 minutes, I know I'm not going to come back. It's not
your thing.
It's never a place for debate or new ways of thinking. And I can tell, like, when people are speaking in these groups, that I always will agree part of the time. Right? They say one thing, I'm like, oh yeah, I agree with that. And then the next thing they'll say, no, I disagree with that. And I'm too much of an independent thinker. And if I start giving my opinion and start saying how I believe differently, they don't want me there either. they really want me to come, but as soon as I start speaking, they want me to leave. Because I'm
kind of my problem.
I'm not a person who's just gonna. I don't go along with the full format of any ideology.
You're not a good follower.
I'm not a good follower. In every group like this, they run parallel on every subject. I notice, like, people who are liberal, they all believe the same thing on women's rights, racial rights, economics. People believe all the same things in these groups as far as abortion and climate change and economics and everything. They just run so parallel. And the same thing with the right wing, left wing, every group. And I go into those groups, and I can go into that group whether it's left or right, and people will say abortion, and I'll say I'm very pro-choice. And then if they start talking about the death penalty, I believe in the death penalty. And with those two beliefs, I'll get kicked out of both sides. Right? Yep. You're just like, get out of here. So
I'm just politically homeless.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna mince words about it. I'm not gonna compromise what I say or what I believe to fit in with the group. I'm also, a lot of people will call this kind of idea of being a centrist. I've heard people call themselves centrist. I'm not a centrist. I don't like that term for myself at all. I would never refer to myself that way, because a lot of the beliefs I hold them very firmly. Right. Not in the middle.
Not in the center.
I'm not in the center of it. I'm very pro-choice, for example. I'm not in the center of that subject. And so it's not the problem that, like, I'm one of these people, well, I see both sides and I kind of fall in the middle. I hear a lot of this. I don't. I read both sides, but I don't fall in the middle. I fall on one of these. The problem is that I fall sometimes on the right side, sometimes on the left side, center right, center of left, whatever it is. And I'm very firm about what I believe there. And most other people can't accept that, deal with that. They don't want it around them. So
You have to agree with everything,
Yeah.
or you're against us.
yeah, so
I can't deal with people like that,
Yeah, I
or
can't-
groups like that.
and it's creepy to be in a room full of people who just agree on everything completely.
My reasons,
That's
though.
that's real. That's like religion, Jen. It's
Exactly. That was I
creepy.
was going to say that. My reasons for being creeped out by that is because it immediately reminds me of being in a cult, one of the religious cults, right? You've never had to experience that, so I'm envious. I'm envious that you didn't have to go through all that shit.
Do you think it's like how their brain is formed because of religion, that it kind of superimposes itself in the same way with politics?
I think so. Yeah.
Right? Like people, if they're used to being in a room like a mosque or a church or a temple, whatever you call your place of worship, if you're used to being in a room or a place or a home where everybody agrees on everything, like religion, I guess you get used to that. And then when you're in a room with people that they all agree politically, it seems normal, I guess. And for me, that I wasn't ever in those rooms, those religious temples where everybody just agreed. I was used to critical thinking and having your own opinion. And then when I find myself in this room, whether it's a religious room or not, whether I'm invited to a church, which I have been, or a political group, I get creeped out. It's not just I disagree. I find it creepy that you're in a room and everybody believes the same on such a wide spectrum of issues. I find that extremely disturbing. Like, whether I agree with those people or not, I find it almost robotic, almost like you're in the Twilight Zone. Like there's something wrong here. Like this shouldn't happen. You should, whether you agree with what I say or not, it's not normal that I run into somebody and we believe everything exactly the same. That shouldn't happen. People are different. We should disagree on stuff. If you walk into a room and you find yourself agreeing with everybody on religion, politics, economics, everything, something is like, you should call into question your beliefs. Like something is wrong. So like you're not thinking, if that's the case, you're not thinking for yourself.
Or you've convinced yourself that you're so right about everything. So you hold the only right, or you and the group hold the only right opinion, and it's everyone else that has the problem.
Well,
it's
the
like
problem is that
self-delusion.
the group encourages parallel thinking, right? And it's like they celebrate the fact that you agree with them, and they discourage the fact that you disagree with them. So you want the reward of agreement, right? The social reward of acceptance. This is what happens with people on the right and left, I think, is that they if you talk in favor of social justice on the left and feminism and socialism and so much stuff, multicultural, all the stuff that the left believes, you're celebrated and you're propped up. And if you deviate from that group, you're cut down. Same thing happens with the right wing. The right wing criticizes the left as, this kind of thinking, this kind of attitude. They do the exact same thing, as you and I know.
Yes.
Everyone does the same thing.
Everyone's a hypocrite.
Yeah, I gotta say that's 99.9999% of people. That's everybody. It's very, very few people I could pull a name out of a hat and say this person is independent thinker. Sorry, no. And yeah,
even the independent thinkers, they still are hypocrites, but I think that they're more willing to be open to the fact that they are hypocrites, or that they're feeling, or their statements are, there's hypocrisy in their statements. I think that they're just more willing to be open about that, and rather than not being hypocrites. That's my opinion, though.
Right. Well, I mean, we all live in certain bubbles, right? Of some kind. Mm-hmm. I just think there's some people who try to break the bubble means other people was very comfortable in the bubble.
Well, there's safety in the bubble.
Yeah. Your bubble boy. remember Bubble
Yeah.
Boy in Seinfeld? There was a bubble boy in Seinfeld. Everybody felt sorry for him, but he was a dick.
That was the best bit, though.
Yeah.
Because you feel sorry for him. And then he's a dick. You're just like, I kind of want him to die.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's end it here because we've been talking for a while. But
3 hours and 40 minutes.
Yeah. Well, let's see what we do with this. Say goodnight, Jen.
Good night, Jen.
I'm gonna demonize biotechnology, 'cause that's my liberal philosophy. Condemn the things that I don't understand. At least I've been a borders in my leftist wonderland. Get out of here, bigots. I don't wanna know ya. I feel your fear of FGM is nothing but Islamophobia. I wanna see labels on those evil GMOs. I think you'll find a real terrorist and them guys at Monsanto. Go, 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 go. I'm so liberal.
You were just listening to an episode of People of the Podcast. You can check us out on YouTube, SoundCloud, and iTunes. Don't forget to subscribe and stop by our Facebook page and give us a like. You can also follow us on Twitter. Links are in the description. And if you wish to contribute, you can donate to us on Patreon. We have a lot of rewards to come, and with your help, we can make better quality content for you. Thank you for listening.